Okay, the recording is preparing to live stream. Just 2 seconds and we'll get to it. Okay. And we're live.
Nice.
Okay. So, hello everyone and welcome to a new session with Aces of Ventures. Today we have Alan Armstrong. He's an amazing guest. I'm going to introduce him in a second. But first, I will do a small presentation about Aces of Ventures so everyone can get familiar with it. Okay, I will be sharing my screen right now. So, what is Aces of Ventures? It is a global decentralized entrepreneurship accelerator. Aces of Ventures has been designed to follow the theme of card decks because we all have cards to play in life. We have actions to take and decisions to make. These cards are used with NFT technologies to help entrepreneurs get faster access to funds and grow their startups. These will be some of the themes of our NFT cards. We have the Jack card, which any holder of this card will be able to submit their pitch to our community. The King and the Queen card will be allowed to ask a question during the pitch. And of course, only 5 people will be chosen to pitch every week. And all the community will be allowed to vote for the winners. Now, our founders are Andre Abi Awad and Robert Tabet. Andre Abi Awad is a serial entrepreneur and entrepreneurship trainer. He has coached entrepreneurs in over 54 countries and counting. Robert is an entrepreneur as well, with over 6 established businesses in the Middle East. Our team is strong and growing. We are over 20 members. We have creative directors, designers, video animators, and me. I'm Jean, the lead podcaster for Aces of Ventures, and we also have a few investors on board. One of our main things in Aces of Ventures are 3 things. One is to bring over $1 million to over 100 entrepreneurs, which will be divided into startup stages, which means idea stage, growth stage, and MVP stage. Another thing is to bring as much educational content as possible to our community by bringing more than 100 speakers from 50 countries to share their experience to our members. And lastly is to execute NFT-related utilities such as burning your NFTs, staking your NFTs, and fusing your NFTs, which will allow you to merge 2 NFT cards to get more benefits. And we are actively looking for partnerships to bring out more value to our community. Don't forget to join us in our Discord and make sure to follow us throughout social media. And now, without further ado, I want to introduce to you again Alan Armstrong. He's a startup coach. He's a content creator. I personally connected with him well over a year ago, and he's a great friend of mine, and I'm proud to say that. Alan, welcome.
Jean, thank you very much. Really, really great to be here. So thank you so much. Delighted to have a chat with you again, because we've done one of these conversations kind of before on a different podcast. And yeah, really hoping to make it interactive. So if anyone has questions, make sure to post them in the chat. We'll try to make it as valuable for everyone that's watching as possible.
Yes, 100%. And I'm happy to have you here, and I'm sure that everyone will get as much value as they can. And guys, I would strongly recommend to have notes and a piece of pen and paper so you can take some notes, because I'm going to be doing that as well. And feel free to ask questions anytime you would like. We will be reading the chat throughout this session. So Alan, feel free to tell us a bit about yourself. What do you do? What did you do before? And where are you now?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I actually started my entrepreneurial journey back, I say, in 2015 when I moved to Germany, and I entered from the research background. So I was a scientist that was the one that was looking to, create this dream of bringing some amazing technology to the market. I made all those classic mistakes repeatedly, had a really good opportunity in a great research project, which was funded for like $500,000 with a grant that I wrote, which had European partners. Like, it was my role as the business guy to try to figure out, a business guy with no experience, but figure out how to bring that medical technology, really advanced medical technology, to the market. And because I made some of those really classic mistakes and kind of fumbled my way through, held on to the idea without being flexible, didn't listen to the customers, didn't really talk to them properly. That was a really hard fall, right? As most entrepreneurs have. I switched over after that startup failed to really take off. No accelerators accepted me. And I actually joined the funding organization, which was a European funding agency for health innovation. They had actually given me this grant initially, and I joined them and their education team for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And then I realized it's time to get back in the game. I'd really loved the experience of developing my own startup, even though I made so many mistakes, even though it was painful.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back and to give back basically to those entrepreneurs. And I joined Entrepreneurship for about 2.5 years, which is one of the largest entrepreneurship centers. They have over 300 employees. They do everything from basic hackathons to pre-incubation, incubation programs, all the way up to a VC that they have in-house. And that was a fantastic experience. Then in about middle of May this year, I left that and I decided to go full-time on my own company, The Strong Startup, which is basically set up to hopefully help first-time entrepreneurs avoid those classic mistakes that I make or I made originally, and that I see every other founder that comes through at least making one or two of the same mistakes. And my mission is to try to improve the odds of those first-time founders by getting those mistakes out of the way and setting the expectations moving forward. As Jean said, I do some content creation. I have done for 2 years. I built that while I was working at Unternehmertum because I was so inspired by all of the access that I got to great educational resources, something that, of course, your company is doing as well, which is great to see. I did that slowly for 2 years while in a very comfortable position with a paid job. And that made my launch when I went full-time in the middle of May, amazingly easier than expected, to be perfectly honest with you. So that's one piece of advice that I have for people, that try to build while you have some level of security. That can also be a benefit compared to having no plan B and having to make this work. There's probably benefits to both, which we can talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And you've gone through so much, and we're going to get into that throughout this session. But I wanted to ask you something that I usually ask at the beginning, and I really like this. Was entrepreneurship a choice, a decision you made, or was it something you fell into?
Honestly, in this, if we went back to my bachelor's, which was sports science, right? I remember listening to an entrepreneur that was in the sports field that was helping in Ireland, where I'm from. He was helping footballers, soccer players that went to the UK to the Premiership. Not many of them make it, as you know, right? And then they were going over there, missing their education because they were 14, 15 going over, and they were coming back to Ireland with no skills, no education. He was creating a business around supporting them with government grants. And I remember him asking that group of students that were all about 18, 19, who wants to be an entrepreneur, who wants to create their own business? And I was the only one that stood up and put up my hand. I wanted to be a fitness consultant or something. And that was my decision, that I really wanted to have my own business. Life got in the way then. I did a PhD that I probably didn't really want to do, but was a good experience. I then moved to Germany, didn't have a job, had to create a job. This was my no plan B. I moved here with my girlfriend at the time, then my wife with a daughter, and I had to make it work. So I worked part-time security for a year at a local hospital next to the main train station, had made some friends for life there. Got into a few bar fights as well. And then in my day job was working in university part-time. And then I had to write this grant. I managed to get the $500,000. And then that was my security for my job. So I kind of fell into it. But it was always in the back of my mind that this was something that I wanted to do. That's what I would say.
So it wasn't totally random. Like we could say you were somewhat prepared for it, or like you were knowing that someday, somewhat, you might end up going into entrepreneurship and the startup ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm quite a creative person, and I'm a little bit like, let's say, the classic dreamer, right? This was something that I was always interested in, and it was easy for me to connect with people. That's kind of like my thing, right? And then my jobs never kind of matched that, right? So my PhD was sitting in a dark room, spinning a handle left and right for science, which wasn't incredibly exciting for me. So yeah, I think I always had the interest to go in that direction. It just took me a little bit longer than expected, maybe, to get there,
Yeah, and I totally understand. Alan, you've been to many startup exhibitions and startup shows where entrepreneurs showcase their startup, pitch their ideas, or even have live demos of whatever their startup are about. In most cases, we can say that they have at least some bit of traction, maybe an MVP. They have something going on. What do you think, or what have you seen that is a bit common with these startups that are able to showcase what they have. We don't have to say they are successful, but
Mhm.
they made it to a stage. They have something to show for. What do you think they all have in common?
Honestly, I think the most impressive one that I've ever seen, and one particular startup in the medical space and surgery comes to mind from a few years ago, is really starting with their customers, understanding the problems, and also telling that story that we thought the problem was this, and then we spoke to 50 surgeons, or we spent 2 weeks at a surgery, and we realized that basically the problem actually is over here, and then we adapted because that's the important problem for the customer. So I think that
Yeah,
loyalty, rather than the classic, which I am guilty of as well, delusional mentality that your vision is going to change the world, and that you're not going to change that, right? You're not going to change your vision. You're just going to keep pounding until you get someone or some money to be able to build it.
yeah,
There's a place for those individuals, but they're extremely rare. That's the Elon Musks, maybe they're the Jeff Bezoses, they're the Steve Jobs, but they're extremely like beyond rare, and they're really beyond the
yeah,
exception. But the individuals that are really customer centric and they can explain their idea in terms of the problem that the customer has, and not in terms of I'm building this, they're the ones that are able to communicate the actual business effectively and to demonstrate that traction, in my opinion. Yeah.
yeah, true. And I think this goes back to the notion that says don't fall in love with your idea just yet.
Yeah.
Like
Kill your
it's
darlings, right? Yeah.
it's all about, yeah, it's all about people, you know, like you can just be so addicted to your idea and just focusing on it and making it perfect. And even if you come up with an amazing product, but if you don't find people to buy it or people to believe in it, you're not
Yeah.
gonna sell it.
It's in fact the
Yeah, and
number one requirement for a business, right? To have a paying
yeah,
customer. Like, so we
yeah,
often joke that like you're not an entrepreneur until you make a sale, right? I mean, that's not
yeah,
necessarily true, but
100%.
really, like, you have to make it extreme in order for entrepreneurs to understand, because they think they're just going to jump to a VC, get 5 million, and then they'll bring their product to
Yeah,
the market. And it's just not how it works. There's so many
yeah,
stats I could give you that would make it improbable that would ever happen. Yeah.
yeah. And Alan, do you know about a startup that you have seen maybe that have showcased their ideas, their products that later on failed? Or do you think they all succeeded?
No, for sure. I mean, the something that we're actually building at the moment. I'm building with a business partner of mine a program to really reduce that risk of failure and to help manage expectations and to focus on the customer discovery, to focus on building your business model even before you touch an idea of getting a co-founder or starting to build your product or even going to look for funding. So it's quite extreme in that sense, but that's what you need to do. But even in that case, even in the best case scenario, it just reduces your risk. It doesn't mean the risk is gone. I mean, most new businesses will, I think is over 90% will fail within the first 3 years. And that's just businesses. And I'm not even, if you go towards startups, because classically startups will be high growth. They need a capital injection, but most of them are not suitable for VC funding. So you're really talking less than 1% that's going to get VC funding, and then the other 99% are like dead. So yeah, it
Yeah,
happens a lot that even though you'll do everything correctly, you'll follow like design thinking, human-centered design, customer first, you'll do everything right, and then it can still fail. And then just to say, sometimes that failure is because of the market conditions. Sometimes it's that there are certain regulations or in the way, or it's the way in which contracts, if it's a B2B software, for example, it's the way in which contracts are actually set up. They're designed sometimes by these big conglomerates like Microsoft, etc., that you just can't get out of them so easy. It's like it makes the customers very sticky because they provide a whole host of solutions. And if you're just providing one little aspect of what Microsoft does, then why would a company switch to you, right? There's external factors like that, but there's
yeah,
also internal factors. I see a lot of founders fail that could have created a very successful business that was maybe just under $1 million in revenue per year, and they failed because that's not good enough for them. They wanted to be the unicorn, they wanted to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, and then it flops because of that. And sometimes that's down to
yeah.
expectation management.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think at some point we all have to accept that not every one of us will be able to be the unicorn, or like unicorns and are actually like unimaginably low in numbers. Like
Yeah.
because we hear about them so much, this is why they are so few. Like we
Yeah.
can just name the few 5 or 6 unicorns that we know of, and that's it. And we have to accept
exactly. I lost you for a second, Jean. Sorry. Don't know whether it's my internet connection. Is everybody else still able to see it? Maybe you can post in the chat. Okay, cool. Thanks, Roland. Cheers. I guess he'll pop back in a second, guys. We just keep it rolling. Does anyone have any questions, by the way? Just like random startup questions, just to keep it going. I'm happy to answer anything. If you're like got a startup idea, or if anything I discussed so far seems wrong or going in the wrong direction. Thanks, Rami and Bara, for posting there. Hopefully Jean will join us now in a second. He's just gonna do the classic turn it off and turn it on again. So no worries. How long do you have to wait before moving on from failure? Very good question. I moved on instantly because I wanted to go ahead and actually pivot my idea.
Back.
Yeah, you're back now. You're back now. I was just answering one question.
Okay,
is that
amazing.
Okay? Or do you want to continue?
Go ahead,
John?
go ahead.
The question was like,
still live
yeah. No stress. Yeah. So how long do you have to wait before moving on to failure? I mean, I would say rather like how long until you can find the next big problem that a customer has that you really are like passionate about and something that you feel you can build a business about. That's really what matters. You can move on instantly, and I highly recommend it. But one point I wanted to relate to what Jean was actually saying about failure and stuff like that. Harvard did some research on this, and I made some videos recently about it. And like, you can increase your chances of success by 85% if you just get a minimum of 3 years relevant industry experience. That's like the most profound statistic I ever heard. And why is because when you look at the average age of a starting company and a company that becomes successful, the average founder age is actually like 42 or 45. And that's for specifically startups. So actually the ones that succeed, it's not the classic, I'm fresh out of college and I have absolutely no relevant experience, but I did an MBA, right, in a cool university. Classically, those aren't the individuals. So to go back to your question, Robert, really it depends on you mentally. If you're ready, if you feel like you're ready to take on the stress of being a founder again and to be poor maybe for 3 years, because even if you're successful, you will be poor for 3 years because that's what a bootstrapped startup, even one that receives funding, will have to do. It's really bare minimum for a few years. If you're ready for that, dive straight in. Go find a customer problem. Write down a quick reflection on what you've learned from your failure and move on. Sorry, Jean, back to you.
Yeah, man, go ahead. I'm just happy to hear everything you're saying. And
Yeah,
I wanted to ask something. Does this I feel like I can kind of relate to it by like, we sometimes think we're too late for a startup, or like everyone is moving ahead of us and we don't have time. Yet we just look and like just Google it, and like the average age, as you said, is above 40 for startup founders. And like,
and specifically successful
and like,
founders,
we have time.
Just to emphasize that, like successful
ones,
the ones that make it,
Yeah. So no one's too late. No one's like behind, right?
Absolutely not. I mean, my business partner who's helping me with this course, he's got 25 plus years experience, Silicon Valley, corporate level. He ran multiple companies, multiple public companies, launched his own startups, sold them and everything. He's reinvented himself several times. He left the corporate world and he said it was like a slap to the face going into the startup world when he was like probably in his mid to late 40s with 2 kids, single dad. And in that case, you look at it and you're like, wow, like that's amazing. And then from there, he also then moved on to the VC world where he's supporting VCs and giving back to those startups. And like, that's like 3 different incidents, 3 different kind of career paths, basically moving forward, So, and then like in a less extreme example, look at me. I mean, I'm starting my second company now. I'm on my own, solo founder. I have someone helping me, Z, a good friend of mine who's helping me with the website and some other stuff. But I mean, like I'm 34, I have a kid. It's really make or break, so you can 100% do it. I thought I was going to be locked up in a corporate job for the rest of my life, but when you think it's the right time and you can do it, then you have to take the risk.
Yeah 100%. And Alan, what if we can divide, actually if you can divide early mistakes entrepreneurs make when they have the idea and they want to start executing, and early mistakes they make after they start going public about it, or like putting something out there to sell?
Right. So Okay, so thinking about like when you get a concept. So Steve Blank, the guy who created the startup, lean startup movement, talks about this.
Yeah,
Everyone starts with a vision. So that's okay, first of all. So I'm not telling you that you can't. You have to start with a problem and then build a product. That's a nice case that can happen, but typically you will have a vision for something. You just need to,
yeah,
like you said earlier, not hold on to it too tightly and be willing to let it go or to let it reshape based on what the customers tell you. That's kind of the first thing. So it's okay to start with a vision. The main issue then is people jump to developing the product. They want to develop the prototype. They think they want to build an app, so they want to build a basic version with the minimum features of the app. So that's the first mistake, is that they're actually jumping to developing a product when you don't even know whether or not someone would want to buy it. So I would say that's like a way of mitigating and going against that first big problem. Is like, if you knew, and my business partner says all the time, if you knew that no one would buy your product, then what would you do? You'd try to
yeah,
find like whether or not someone would be interested in potentially buying this product, right? It's a classic
yeah.
customer discovery, but people don't ask that question. People just assume that if they build it, they will come. And that's the
I
number
want to
one. Yeah,
interrupt you right here,
go
Alan.
it.
I want to,
Go for it.
because I believe a lot of us here have the same question. A lot of people come up to me and tell me I'm afraid to share my idea to people because they're gonna go ahead and steal it because I did not yet execute it and got
Yeah.
patents on it and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
I mean, this was
Should we be
advice I
so
heard from.
secretive?
It depends. I see these stealth startups and stuff online. Like,
Yeah,
honestly, there's such a small percentage of startups that really have intellectual property, that are really developing something cutting edge, like kind of like when you look at university technology that's going to come out. But like, just
yeah,
to say, like, most of them are published. So once your research is
yeah,
published, it's
yeah,
public, so you can't get a patent. And to be honest, like, the best advice I ever heard about patents is like, patents are only as good as the amount of money you're willing to shovel into lawyers who are going to help you to protect that patent and defend it. Like, if you even look at the Theranos, Apple TV, I think
yeah,
had or Disney had a TV show about it. It was the same thing. Like, you have to have so much money to support those patents. It's not that you have a piece of paper and you're sorted. So I would
yeah,
really
yeah,
say there's, for a majority of cases, there's far more benefits to talking about your idea, or better yet, talking about the problem space. Because like I said, you need to be able to explain your idea by discussing the customer problem and the benefits that they will get. You shouldn't even be talking about your idea. You should just be saying, this is my customer, they have this problem, and with my solution, they're going to have these benefits. They're going to get this value from my product. That's how you have to be able to explain
yeah,
it. So I just reframe that, but go ahead, talk about it. I mean, if you're worried about some IP, and then take that format of the customer, the problem, and the benefits. There's no IP there. There's no patent. You're not going to give anything away. If you're thinking about building a platform, forget about it. It's probably 50 platforms that are probably similar in your niche that have already been
yeah,
either tried and failed or happened. So like, most of the time, unless it's something super duper high tech, that's a potentially hardware, because software can't really be patented properly, that would be my recommendation, is just to get over that. And if you're still nervous about the idea, like I said, just focus on the customer problem and the potential benefits that could come from that. It's a way of sidestepping the worry of someone stealing the idea.
yeah, yeah. I love this answer, and I'm sorry again for interrupting you, but I really wanted to
Go
know
for it.
this, and it
No,
just
it's okay.
came right on time.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
No.
Alan. Like, let's just continue talking about the mistakes because I'm taking notes right
Yeah,
now.
so like I said, the early stage mistakes is just you jump from this vision to product development, and you just completely forget about your customers. A lot of people actually think mistakenly that lean startup is like, just build it and then show it to customers and then iterate. But people forget there's a whole other step that's meant to run, not before necessarily, but actually in parallel. And that's your classic customer discovery, which is just talk to customers, not about your idea, not about your product. Just say you're building something in this space and you want to learn from them as experts, like what are the problems they have right now. Make sure make sure it's priority number one. So whatever problem you're working on, it needs to be the most important mission critical problem that they have right now. Otherwise, they're probably not going to buy it. That's customer discovery. And then there's customer validation, which is when you're ready and you really understand the market, etc., and more specifically who your customer will be. You can do the validation, which is you try to get your first customers. So that's the step that's normally missing, which is the customer discovery and the customer validation. Pretty much none of the startups that I actually ever worked with have done that in depth. They've always skipped over. They've always had a couple of customer interviews, or they've waited until they have a product ready to go talk to them. And many of them Some of them even exit, but they exit because there's no other option. They will never be able to make revenue, and that's still a success, of course. But that's I would say the biggest mistake for the early stage partners, and then for the early stage founders, and then for, you said, like founders that already have a product and they're trying to scale, or they're trying to like build it up, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like the first steps where you get to actually trying to sell your product or service.
Get you. I think this goes back to understanding your customers and then linking that to your business model canvas. And then that should really highlight like what skills you have as a founder that relate to those 9 boxes in the business model canvas. Like, what are you missing? Because like, if you're not a sales guy or girl, then you've got, and sales is super important because you're developing a B2B business in an industry that you're actually not familiar with. You're just an AI guy, but you're selling to this particular industry. You gotta like make sure that you've saved some equity and haven't given up all of your equity to John, Mary, and Pat over there that are just tech developers. You need to make sure that you have room to attract someone that's going to require a lot of money, but it's going to be absolutely critical. So most founders are terrible at sales. That's probably my answer there, is that it's difficult to do. Just like customer discovery, people don't like being in front of humans, but they'll do it. And that's the mistake underneath that, is thinking that you have to do everything. If you're the lead founder, if you're the CEO, your job is to steer the ship and to be the strategic kind of milestone that kind of just like keeps everything on track, keeps everything afloat financially, talks to investors, because that's going to be a majority of your job if you take on investors, and then just make sure that the other departments within your thing, sales, marketing, development, is moving in line with your division, your vision for whatever the company may be. And the biggest mistake is thinking that you also have to do sales. Maybe in the beginning you do, but eventually you need to hire someone who's actually an expert who can do that. And that goes back to also this concept of experience, that if you're an 18-year-old, but you've got a great idea, this 42 years of age, of successful founders, don't be intimidated by that. You can bring in advisors, you can bring in experienced senior individuals that can be maybe part of your staff that would actually help you to be able to grow that business. One other mistake would be thinking that you as a business and a service provider, or the person that's developing a product, needs to do everything yourself. So you see some people that are doing, say, I don't know, something in the food industry, right? In terms of home delivery for food. And they think that they have to be the delivery service, that they have to do the logistics, that they have to manufacture the food themselves and do everything. In more cases than not, it's better for you to partner with someone, so you get to the market quicker, so you get that feedback, and then you can iterate, and later you can go ahead and actually make that massive expense of purchasing like a storehouse or purchasing a large kitchen. It's really about leveraging those important partnerships in the beginning to cut down your costs, because if you have to do everything, you'll burn out of cash like within a year,
Yeah, 100%. And speaking about maybe hiring an expert to do the sales for us, if we are not salespeople, or we're not willing to be in front of customers. I once read an article that said, even if it stretches your budget, hire as many people as you can, as early as you can. But I don't know if I'm truly convinced in that, or it could be wrong, or it could be right. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think
should we just go ahead and hire as many people as you can?
I think there's no right or wrong answer. Like, what you want to avoid is this company fast. I don't know, they're in the news there the last few months. They just blew all their money on hoodies and big corporate retreats and stuff. Don't do that. Don't be silly and spend all your money on stuff that's maybe not important when you don't have a business that's profitable. So I think you need to first confirm that you have a potential for a profitable business. You don't want to go ahead and start hiring people if you're still unsure exactly who your customers are, particularly your first customers. So that's another mistake. People think that my ideal customer profile is this person over here. We're going to take 10% of that market, and then that's going to make us $1 million in revenue every year. They're not going to be your first customers, 100%. It's going to be a subsection of that customer base. It's going to be your customers. So until you're really certain, I would keep it as lean as possible. And even don't take on funding for as long as possible, because the longer you wait, the more evidence you have that this could be a successful business, because you'll have more paying customers, you'll iterate your product, and then you approach a VC from a position of strength. But most startups will approach them from a position of weakness, meaning I'm desperate, I have no money, I'm fresh out of college, I have a cool idea, we maybe have some customers, but I need to pay these 5 guys, otherwise they're going to leave. And that's a position of weakness. You're going to take a terrible deal that has terrible conditions. And if you ever get bought out in the end, it's the VCs that are going to get their money, or 2x or 3x of their money before you even get a penny. So that would be my recommendation, is like to stay as lean as possible. Hiring, apart from giving someone equity, so hiring, I would say, is better than giving away the equity, unless you're really certain that to make sure the growth of your business, so looking forward, rather than, oh, John's been with us for 2 years and he was there from the very beginning eating noodles with us. And the past doesn't matter as much as what's important to drive this business forward. And if the salesperson is super critical, I think it's okay, if you're really sure, to then give some equity, maybe with vesting, for example, to give it to them over a period of time, to enable them to have more incentive and to join you if they're really critical for your business, you know?
Yeah, and I would add to that maybe an alternative to hiring people, we can just outsource or benefit from freelancers to do, like, if we have specific tasks, so that we don't overpay someone or just pay someone to do a small thing that could just take a few hours or a few days to complete.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, you're a big fan of Upwork, right? I know people with 500,000 and serial founders on TikTok with 500,000 followers, pay $400 to get an amazing website with Airtable integrations, everything for the new startup they're launching. It's possible to do that. I mean, you can also do it for free with Wix, so just hire a working student, like for €200 a month or something, right? There's ways around it. So I really like that approach. I think the more you can hire in, the better, because you don't know yet, right? You don't know if you're going to be successful. You don't know if this is going to be worth your money to really hire someone, in terms of like give them an unlimited contract or like take them on as a founder. That's the number one reason why I think, which is a controversial view, that you shouldn't even take on a co-founder until you've talked to the customers, confirmed the problem, done your business model canvas, looked at what you bring to the table and what your business model says you need, and then you can go and get the right people. Then you can get the salesperson, then you can get the tech person, and you can start building. So I think the risk is too high, you know?
Yeah, and we have Rami here. He mentioned that we can give equity if someone's knowledge is very crucial and the R&D depends on their knowledge.
Sure. The risk there, and this is just from personal experience of, because with Entrepreneurs, where I used to work, which is an incubation program attached and partnering with the technical university, we of course get a lot of researchers that come in. And what comes with those researchers? Professors that they work for that don't contribute anymore to the actual growth of the company, but because their idea was somehow connected to it in a published paper or whatever, they want 10% equity. This is a real case that came through. No investor will touch you. If there's a random professor who's not actively contributing, or even if they're an advisor, 10% equity is madness. Unless there's really like a patent and like, you know, it's like completely like linked to that individual. And then therefore, you know, you probably need to maybe look at licensing instead of going and giving them equity. That would be my recommendation. If the knowledge is crucial, yes. But the point is they have to be contributing to the business in order to get like consistently for the future, in order to be able to help you grow. It's not enough that an advisor comes in and says, hey, look, I'll advise you, and if you get this VC round, you just give us 10% or 5% of the cut of whatever you receive in VC funding. That's a terrible, terrible deal. I have some noise. Just let me know in case that's coming through. No? Okay, cool.
It's barely,
okay. So for knowledge and R&D, it's way too early. If you're still doing R&D and like you haven't yet figured out, can you actually make this into a profitable business? It's too early to talk about equity. That's why something like vesting is very attractive, because you can say, look, if you're going to commit to us for 3 to 5 years, you'll get your equity. Like if you commit with us and you actually stay with us for that length of time, because as I said, more than likely it's going to fail based on the stats. So why kill your chances in the beginning for any VC to touch you if some person that's not actively contributing to something essential in your business, but it was essential on day 4 and 5 of the business, is still there? You know, that's what I'd recommend.
Yeah. Do you think that some mistakes cannot be repaired, and with startups or with entrepreneurs? Do you think that there is something that is just killer for a startup, or all mistakes can be worked out?
It depends how you look at it. I mean, people talk about, you know, getting your first failed startup out of the way. That was definitely my case. And then like taking those lessons and hoping improving later. So in that context, from startup to startup attempt, you could say that there's no mistakes that can't be undone or improved or learned from. But It depends. I mean, in that case with the professors, sometimes it's just or with equity, it's just a hard conversation you have to have, a very honest one, that like, look, we won't get VC funding. So if you want to keep your equity, we have to bootstrap this, which means that our potential for actually creating a business is severely limited, right? But I think it depends on the time, right? So if you don't have product market fit and you've invested all your money and there's no more money they're going to give you, and you've already gotten like 5 million, and you realize that shit, we haven't really got a proper market here, that could be too late, right? Maybe you can salvage something and you can salvage some part of the company and you can like downsize and do things, but like people are going to lose jobs, all this kind of stuff. So that to me is like the most important thing. Like, that's why I think you shouldn't take on a co-founder until you're certain that someone will buy this product from me and you're certain that you can make a profitable business. At least like you're kind of still guessing, but you're sure, because you're the responsible one. You're going to take on someone, they're going to quit their job and you're going to give them a percentage of your company. They're not going to have a salary for 2 or 3 years. You're going to hire all these individuals that are going to depend on you if it starts to grow, and then it's going to fall flat on your shoulders, and it's going to be your fault if it messes up, because you can never point the finger. If you like Jocko Willing, for example, he talks about extreme ownership. It's on you. It's on the CEO. It's on the person that's leading that business. So you need to take this seriously when you're moving forward. So I suppose it's a random answer to your question. Sorry.
No, it's amazing, man. And guys, just a small reminder: if you have questions, feel free to just type them in the chat. Alan will be more than happy to answer. He's already providing so much value. So Alan, if you were to go back before you started everything related to entrepreneurship, what would you do differently? Oh, I think you are on mute. Yes. Okay.
Sorry, I was just trying to adjust my settings so that I can maybe filter out the noise and the drill. So first of all, so if I could go back and fix the problem that I had, right, or the failure that I had with the startup.
If you were to just go back and you just had the idea, the same idea that you had at first, but you did not yet take action, what would you do differently?
I mean, 100%, just to say point blank, like, because I worked for the funding agency, right, that had given me the money for that same project, $500,000. I would never fund that project now. And I'm really, really, really biased and harsh with people that come to me with ideas around medtech, because I think they just don't understand it, just like I didn't understand it. I would make sure that there was some level of a conversation with other experts that are trying to build technical solutions in my area where I had the idea, which was dementia. And basically home care for dementia. I would have spoken to many, many more customers and users and experts that were building in that space before even writing the grant proposal. That would have saved a lot of problems, and probably would have still meant, no matter in the best case scenario, that we wouldn't have got funding, because the tech was already in place. We already knew that we were going to use this tech, because my friend, who's actually from Lebanon as well, he brought the idea of the technology, and we worked together. So there was no way in my mind, even now, as the Microsoft HoloLens, to pivot that tech with the same like patient, even a different problem. It just wouldn't have worked, I don't think. That would have been my first move that would have saved everything. The second thing, I actually had this opportunity when I tried to pivot, and we realized that because I still wanted to help those patients. And in general, in Germany, there's a high amount of commission that could be earned giving, leads essentially of elderly people that need services, whether it's home food delivery services, or the money is really in redecorating your bathroom and making a walk-in shower because you can't do it anymore. You can earn thousands of euro from one lead from that, and it's covered by a grant by the government. So for the elderly person, they also don't get it. I had that idea to pivot, but of course I thought I had to build a small version of the platform and connect everyone and stuff. If I had just gone door to door, I would have made money. And I think that's probably my, to answer your question, with the pivot that I tried but failed with after my first idea didn't work out, I would have just gone ahead and tried to sell immediately, because the money was just to be made there, and it would have given me a fantastic experience.
And about pivoting, do you think it is a mistake, or like is pivoting good, or it depends?
No, I think nobody knows what the product really should be. If you look even at things like Facebook and stuff, I mean, it's evolved into a different beast altogether. And part of that is the vision of the people that work there and Mark Zuckerberg and stuff. But a part of it is also just the general trend of where technology is going and what customers might expect in the future, right? So you're always serving your customers. So whatever assumption for a vision you have almost always will be at least partially wrong. So, meaning that you will have to pivot some way that you think feature X, Y, and Z is going to be super for your product, but really they need A, B, and C over there, you know? So I think pivoting is just a natural part of it. And it's just really difficult for people to do because they have this first idea and they think, God, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to build it. I'm going to go do it. And then they're not willing to give up even part of that vision in order to make it work and to listen to those customers. So completely normal. You have to pivot. Pretty much everyone will, at least partially.
Yeah. So I wanted to get this out of the way because me and other people, like, I'm not going to say suffer from this, but like think about it. Okay, what if I pivot? What will people say? What will they think about my startup or my project? Why is he changing the way he does things? I would just like remember the COVID pandemic and how almost 99% of the startups in the world had to pivot or adapt, and those
small businesses,
who didn't just fail.
Restaurants, everything, everyone had to pivot.
100%. Yeah.
And just to say on that, like one of the best pitch decks I ever saw was from a startup from the Fraunhofer Institute. It's one of the most famous institutes in Germany in terms of research. They pump out innovation. I think the MP3 player was invented there, the file format. And they there was a startup from there, like a tech transfer startup, and they actually explained like they're in a timeline, like where the product was actually being developed initially, and then they talked to customers and got feedback, and they pivoted and they showed it on a timeline. I just stopped them and said, this is amazing. I've never seen a startup actually explain that what they started with was wrong. And then they use customer data to actually change the product vision. It just shows that, like I said, when you look at who does a good demo and who impresses me when they're pitching, it's the people that are listening to their customers, you know? So I would encourage people to even include a slide like that. No one does it, but it's super important to be very transparent about where you started and where you are now, you know?
Yeah. And Alan, what's the startup ecosystem like in Germany right now? Oh, well, my bad. Okay.
No, that was my fault. Apologies. Sorry, it was loud again. I tried to. I won't mute again. I promise. No problem. What's the startup ecosystem like in Germany? Right.
Yeah.
I think it's super vibrant. I mean, what you have now is obviously Berlin. You know, the capital is also like its own beast, right? That's like amazing, particularly for B2B and stuff like that, or maybe more B2C. Like you have companies like N26 and Zalando and all these kind of companies that are based there. And then you have got Munich coming up right behind it, which is really a growing and thriving ecosystem, which is where I'm based. But if you just look at the number of incubators and accelerators that are popping up here, I can only speak to Munich. Of course, I don't know Berlin so well. But I think there's a massive amount of support there. There's always a tricky part. So the Germans will come back to me on this, that like it's difficult tax wise, and also just the bureaucracy to found the company here in Germany. It can be expensive and it can be a little bit tricky, but it's not impossible. It's just unfortunately part of the system, the public system here. It's not like Estonia where you can just register online for an Estonian national ID.
E-nationality.
Yeah, and you can like go ahead and create a company. So I think Estonia have the most per capita unicorns or something in Europe, but I don't think hardly any of them come from Estonia, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I saw it. I have a contact who got like e-nationality without never stepping there. So it's like it's really cool. Yeah. And by the way, like, would you still say that Germany would be a nice target for entrepreneurs or for people who want to explore entrepreneurship? Would Germany be good on the list?
Not necessarily. I would say there needs to be a question before that, which is kind of like, what are you looking to get out of it? Like, you know, in terms of like, look at the industry that you're interested in and you should go there. I got this advice before, like when it came to building my medtech solution. And the guy was like, look, if you're really serious about this, was an expert in medtech. He was like, you should go to Boston. Like that's where all the major top cutting edge medtech companies, where all the VCs that primarily invest in medtech space are there. So like if you're really serious about this, you should probably go there because you're in a German market, you're looking to reimburse your medical technology. It's very complicated to do and it takes time and it's difficult to get on that magic list that gets you public money. So I would really ask the question, like, like what are you interested in, and then go find like an ecosystem report. Like Startup Genome is a fantastic survey and report on the best ecosystems in the world. I think UAE is the top supportive ecosystem for startups in the world for 2022. Check them out, and I would rather pick based on, not that I'm telling you Munich is great. I mean, of course, you're welcome. Come on, I'll bring you for a coffee. But think more about the industry. I mean, if you're interested in automobile, cool. If you're interested more in autonomous vehicles, maybe you're going to go to America and find a nice Tesla factory, you know?
Yeah, that's true. And one last question for today, Alan, and I really appreciate the time you gave us today.
No problem.
If you were given just $500, one laptop, and you were dropped off in a random country, what would you do to start? What business would you do? How would you manage?
$500?
Yeah, and the laptop.
And a laptop.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would take the same strategy. How much time do I have? Like, can I survive, or do I have to use the $500 to buy food?
No, you can forget the food. You have the food, you have a place to stay. You just need to start a business or do something.
Okay, I would just go absolutely hell for leather, like 5 posts a day on a platform like TikTok, reposting on YouTube Shorts, and then growing an audience on LinkedIn. That's it. That's what I did over 2 years. I messed around for 2 years, and I just published content here and there. But most of my revenue right now comes from brands paying me for the audience that I took 2 years to build. And I can definitely do that faster if I really like looked at it in terms of the niche and the questions that I'm asking. You can totally turn that around in like a 3 or 4 month period if you just pick the right niche. As I said, pivot based on the content. That's where the money is right now. It's not just in the brand purchasing you as a creator, but it's actually using the likes of TikTok and stuff as the carrot to have a mass audience that follows you, and then getting them to go somewhere, which is a website like Rami just mentioned, getting them to like buy your services. Like I see so many people making lots of money just based off courses. I looked at a guy earlier on Udemy, I think it was $14.99 for a customer development course, and he has 2,500 people that have joined that course. Just do that math. Do that math. Like there's way, and like for sure, like he probably knows what he's talking about, but he could have just learned it from a book and then is really good at piecing it together and making a great piece of educational content. There's money to be made out there that doesn't really cost you anything, you know?
Alan, I really want to thank you genuinely for the time you gave us. It's been amazing. This is probably the 3rd or 4th time we have like an amazing conversation, and I'm really grateful for this. And guys, everyone listening, you can rewatch this on YouTube. It's going to be here right after we end the meeting, and you can find Alan on any social media as The Strong Startup. Actually, I'm going to write it in the chat so you can find him.
Cheers.
Feel free to follow him, maybe send him a message, connect with him, and that.
And if anyone's interested in the upcoming course as well, we're also going to do a free webinar, which is going to take place in September. But you know, I do a newsletter. You can go to theStrongStartup.com. You can also check it out and sign up there if you're interested. Cool.
Yes.
No, thank you, Jean. I always have time for you. I love the conversation. I love the questions. You're very
thank you, man.
Very inquisitive. You got like really great questions. So thank you for that. Should we take a few questions from the audience as well, or there was a few there from
if
Rami,
anyone has any question, feel free to ask.
And just to say, I can even tell you like what my current like model is in terms of how I try to generate money. Like it's not yet like super successful or anything, but you know, I double down on TikTok and YouTube Shorts right now because you know I repost my videos on YouTube Shorts because it's a search-based platform that has potential to live forever, right? And Gary V launched a video just last week telling people to like double down on YouTube Shorts this year. But I get money from brands in terms of sponsored content, but I also do affiliate. And this is something that Rami mentioned as well. There's a huge amount of money you can make when you build up that trust with an audience and then you make recommendations with affiliate marketing. I have a startup toolkit. If you go to my TikTok or anything, you just click the link in my bio. You'll be able to find the link to the Notion startup library. It's all like free tools, but some of them are affiliate. There's also a bit of money that comes in through there. I do coaching directly with startups. And just to say, I've gotten clients directly through a TikTok live. This is the real world now, and you can get people to buy things from you and buy services through social media. And then the real thing that we're interested in doing is this self-paced online course for founders, for first-time founders. That's where a lot of people I see are making money, because it's a nice way to work, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yep. We have a lot of cool questions right now. Cool. So we have Bara that asked, "What's the book you wish you have read before starting your business?"
Yeah, it was I think Rami or someone mentioned it earlier, the Mom Test. I'm a huge fan of the Mom Test. That's a really, really important book. You know, I bought it. I got a recommendation at a boot camp to buy that book. And I did the classic thing. You know, I bought all the books that were recommended to me, never really read them because I was so busy with my vision. But that would be the one book that I would have read, because on the back of it, I was just looking, it's actually right here underneath my mic. It says, "Everyone is lying to you." That's like the caption at the very top, at the back of the book. And it's true. It's like whenever if you ask the wrong questions to a customer, they're not doing it intentionally. They don't mean you harm or anything, but they will lie to you because it's like human to human. They don't want to performance anxiety, or it's like just, you know, social pressure. They don't want to give you bad news, right? So when you ask questions like, what do you think about my idea? Do you like it? They're going to say, "Oh yeah." Very rarely they're going to say your idea is terrible. Don't do that. So the Mom Test will be one of the books I think that I would have loved to have read in advance.
I should check out this book probably.
It's super small. You can get through it pretty quickly.
We have Fuad that asked, "What would you say to your younger self?"
I recommend a lot of founders to do this as well. And I would have said, get some experience in the industry. So I was coming straight from research with no business experience. I think if I really wanted to do something in tech space, I should have gone and joined a med tech company for a couple of years just to understand how the business works and to understand who's buying it, etc. That goes back to my point earlier about like just getting like 2 or 3 years experience in the relevant industry will increase your chances of success if you have an idea for a startup by 85%, probably because most of them will end up not creating the business, maybe the company or the startup, because they'll realize how difficult it is to create the business. But that experience and knowledge, you cannot necessarily compensate for that, right? You can maybe buy in advisors and stuff, but as we know, like 42, 45 years of age is the average age of a successful founder. It's something that's very, very important. And with that goes back to
when. Yeah, exactly. This goes back to when we talked about it at first. Like, we're not too late. We have time. We can get some corporate experience.
It's patience.
We have Rami with the last question.
What skills should we focus on?
I totally agree with you. I think you can see the question.
I think one of the most important skills would be really, in my opinion, would be communication. I think there's a lot of other things that you can learn, but if you want to be a lead founder, as in you want to be a founder that actually is the CEO that has the most equity in the company, your job is mainly as a communicator. You communicate to potential other people that you're going to hire. You communicate to your customers in the beginning just to have an interview, and you're mainly listening there, right? But that's an important part of communication. Later, you're going to sell to them. You're going to take the same language that they use to explain the problem to you. You're going to flip it and then use the same language to sell back to them, right? You have to be able to talk to investors and to convince them and to, you know, ease their worries if there's things going wrong. You need to communicate to your team, etc. So honestly, being a really good extrovert in that sense, doesn't mean you have to change from introvert to extrovert, but being comfortable on stage and being able to communicate is a really, really important skill. Probably something you weren't expecting. There's not many founders that would say like, "Oh, you need to have communication skills," but I think it's very, very important, you know.
Rami added to it to ask you what technical skills as well.
So what technical skills would give us an advantage and diminish the need to hire more people, especially at the first stage of a startup? Well, a big misconception is that you need to have a tech person on your team. And I got this advice from a startup that I'm working with at the moment, a really great founder who was in Silicon Valley for some time and said that most of the founders there, they don't worry so much about the tech end. The VCs and the investors are super concerned with making sure that the market exists and that they could potentially sell this because they know that they can just later hire a tech person to go build it, right? And nowadays, you don't even need to hire a tech person to build it. I mean, I'm adding no code tools that will help you to build an app for pretty much no money with no technical experience whatsoever in the space of a week. So you can do that. And the misconception as well around tech is that if you go back to the example of the platform that I was trying to create to connect service providers like renovating bathrooms with the elderly individuals, I thought I had to build that. But a prototype is about prototyping the value. It's not prototyping a small version of your product or service. So when you're looking at a technical solution, think about how can I actually deliver that value now without actually having like a technical aspect to it? How can I actually deliver the value by just knocking on people's doors, finding someone that needs to get their bathroom done, and then going to connect it? That's not going to scale, but that can make you thousands of euro, right? So this is another way of looking at it, not just in terms of the technical skills that you might need. I think it's a bit of a risk if you now start to like learn coding because in 3 months' time you want to launch a product and go ahead and do it. That's unrealistic. And even if you did that, by the time you are successful in a year or two and actually run a company, you're never going to be coding again. You're going to be the guy that's leading or the girl that's going to be leading the company. So better to leave that to the experts, in my opinion.
Yeah, amazing answer, Alan. We have Jihan who asked you, do you believe that Facebook can still generate leads, like 40-year-old plus people, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you one or two examples on this. I think it depends on your market. I think it's getting more expensive from what I heard. I haven't done too much with ads, but I do know that the price point is extremely, it's much higher. But with TikTok and like Spark ads and stuff where someone else can put money to advertise your video, is obviously like a greater return, I think, potentially. But I think it really works. There's a lot of that age group, like 40-year-old plus, that are in groups on Facebook, and I see a lot of content creators. They do this with an exclusive group where they have like a private group, like the Road to 100, or 6-figure salary or whatever. All these content creators that are selling courses and stuff, they rope you in by having these groups, and then they host free webinars and challenges and stuff through them. So I think definitely it's a way to monetize, and it's a great free place to put your content, and then also have like a group of people that can communicate and go back and forth like a community. I also know a lot of people that are actually making hundreds of thousands of euro off these groups where they create a Facebook group. There's even like a free ebook I could probably tell you and send you on how to monetize an actual Facebook group. They just do it through affiliates and through selling their own courses and stuff, but it's just a sports motivations, a running group, and they have over 100,000 users. It's just owned by a company, but like the company isn't in the name, and they make, I think it's over 200,000 per year just off affiliates, because there's 100,000 people, and if a small fraction of them buy the products that they sometimes post about, then they make a crap load of money. And everyone else just thinks they're in a really great group that are going to like motivate each other when they post when they did their 5K jog, So there's a lot of ways you can still utilize Facebook. It just depends on your audience, right?
Yeah, 100%. I still use Facebook sometimes to delegate or outsource. There's a lot of freelancing groups, tutoring groups where it's like Upwork, but like a freer version of Upwork. 100%. Sure. So I guess we can wrap it up for today. It's been an hour. It's amazing, actually. It's our longest session yet. Alan, I want to thank you again for your time, and everyone who wants to reach out to him, feel free. And if you lost his account one way or another, just contact me, and I will gladly link you to any social media platform that he has. And I just wrote again his username in the chat box.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my email there
as well on YouTube. Yeah,
as well.
Go ahead,
just to say,
sure.
I put my email out a lot, and people don't email me. So if you actually have a question, it's no problem. Just email me. I'm happy to answer. But I say this, I even do it on my TikTok live. I give people my email, and they're always afraid to ask. But please email me if you have a question. If I can help you, I will. No problem at all. And Jean, thanks again. I really appreciate it. It gives me a lot of energy in the evening. I'm normally very sleepy around this time, but honestly, it's you're really engaging, and it's super to be able to go back and forth with you as well. So the audience is very lucky to have you.
I feel the same, man. I feel the same. Have an amazing rest of the day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks very much. Right. Appreciate it. Thanks.